In today's video, you're going to learn how to use gesture to draw more expressive and dynamic figures. So we'll first start by laying in a basic gesture. So try to get some very elongated, sweeping lines. Sort of throw those more from your shoulder, your elbow, and I'm definitely somebody that pivots off my wrist, but I still want to try to emulate and throw the lines. And I can later pivot off my wrist when I'm doing the refinement anyways. So right now I'm just trying to capture this movement. So this is a pose on Pinterest, which I like, saving these boards, saving them under different actions, and then coming back and utilizing them for things like this. It's a great way to learn, and it gives you all sorts of cool reference to work with. So as I try to draw and again throw these lines in place or an approximate place, that's the other thing to consider here, is that when you're doing this, because you are drawing more from your shoulder, from your elbow, and throwing lines, focusing more on energy, less on volumes, less on the actual forms, it's a bit of balancing. So you do want to obviously try to capture the overall figure, but again, it's more from an energy and flow standpoint at this particular juncture. We'll go back and we'll refine this, and then we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I tend to find that that's a different set of ideas. Right now, it's all about just sort of getting the energy of it. And really, like when I say throw, I mean throw past what you see. And that's, again, it's sort of hard to mend these ideas together. Like, how far do you go with that? Well, the more you tend to throw past what you see, the more exaggerated the gesture and even the end result of your illustration will be. And so I think that to really decipher or understand how much of that you should use, you have to look at how stiff your drawings are. So I share my work on various sites, and every now and then people will tell me, hey, it looks good, but it's too stiff. Hey, it looks good, but, all those buts. And so then you just have to sort of go, okay, if I'm getting a lot of that sort of feedback, especially if they're people that are, I'm trying to impress with my work, maybe an art director, site where, people are more professionals, hang out, whatever, you really got to listen, right? So then the idea is, how much gesture would I incorporate? Well, if it's a very stiff drawing, then you need a lot more gesture. And that means a lot more exaggeration and thrown curves. So as I get to this point, I've got the curves in place, but now I start to look at other things about the figure. So if you're looking at the same photo, again, you can find it on Pinterest there, you're going to see different things. Like the negative space here is different from the actual pose to what I've got here. And again, it's because I'm overusing gesture. So when I get to the part now where I start to become more I'm analyzing, I'm changing forms, I'm moving more things around, I'm trying to become more specific and critical, I'm going to lose some of that gesture, but I'm now going to implement more of what you might look at and say, well, that looks more like an actual body, or that looks more like anatomy. And so it's finding, again, that bit of balance between all these concepts. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to just get lost in this and not able to draw good figures, because where are the lines, where are the limits of each? Like, you don't want to do as much silhouette drawing, but I can draw a silhouette of a leg right there, and you could tell it's a leg. So there's a little bit of that, right? So it's understanding interior forms and volumes of anatomy, but also learning to blend those concepts together with gestural lines, more flow, more movement, thinking of almost like wind flowing through fabric, stuff like that. The other thing to consider here is that I'm also drawing this in a way where I'm trying to prep it for a stylized version over top that I can draw for superheroes. So even though I'm looking at a person, I have to make certain changes, like the way the legs are and how the clothing is. And then for the torso, he's wearing a shirt. It's kind of hard to tell, but there is more of a overlap from the legs, hips area to the torso being covered. We're looking up at this character. So we need forms on lines that round up like this, or wrapping lines, or cross contour lines. Need to wrap up. Same thing with the leg here, even though it jets off. Actually, there's more negative space behind the foot right here. So yeah, I've got a lot of correction to do. Again, this is if I'm trying to really capture exactly what I'm looking at. I typically don't do that as much. I know I probably should, but I go for learning about the particular pose so that I can draw it for, my storytelling needs. Is usually, at least where my mind is at with this stuff. Definitely get full angle of the bottom of, plane change of the foot like this. Again, this head is like really far down. Like I keep having to adjust it down even further. It's a really dynamic pose. And so the part that I keep trying to figure out here is that with what I'm looking at, we see a lot more of his back from this angle. So, but we don't because he's wearing a shirt, but you could tell through the shirt that you're looking at the back of the character more, especially too because his ear is like this. You're seeing like the back of the head. It's like one of those parkour kind of jumps. Really, really exciting pose. So something like this. And again, there's a little bit of negative space right here. The leg and the hip area is probably even bigger by comparison. Something like that. And I have to imagine where some of the muscles are, like the lats and that. I can't see because of the shirt, but I would imagine something like that. I also overextended the distance here to the elbow. The elbow just barely, it's like right past the back, and then it's like boom, there's the forearm. It actually, as it comes up to this muscle, it actually starts to intersect with the back. So it's, you see I had it way over here. So there's a lot of that moving things around. But again, now I have the gesture, and I can keep referencing the gesture on the left and go, okay, even though now it looks really funny to me, but I think that's okay. Like I'm really just trying to get the energy. And so the arm, I drew it way too straight, but as I'm looking at his arm, it actually does look really straight. I don't know why. There's obviously subtleties in the curvature of the anatomy, but in this particular pose, his arm is actually very, very straight. So I feel like I'm going to leave that. Like it seems odd because I just typically I try not to draw arms that straight, but I'm looking right at the reference and you can be the judge. I feel like it does look straight. So this is one of the great things about drawing from life is that it does help us to reconcile what we think we know and what we think we see. As a lot of artists will tell you, learning to draw is learning to see, and one of the things that you are going to do to get better at that is draw from life. And so after I have the major forms laid in, I start to, hold up my hand or the stylus and close one eye, and I'm measuring parts of the body in comparison to other parts of the body, that coupled with angles to make sure everything's aligned properly. Yeah, so basically like from the head to his foot is pretty much equal the distance from the shoulder to the hand. So here to here, here to here. So now I could have either one of these wrong, which would mean I would just relate the wrong information to the other one, right? But I'm going to say that the head to the foot is the lesser of the two evils, and I'm just going to I'm going to cheat here, so forgive me because I know traditional artists always get mad at this part, but I'm just going to scale this down a bit and bring that over. I'm going to say to about right there, because the other thing I am looking at is the distinction from the angle from this part to this part. Now again, anything can change this. I could have the hand too big, and of course the angle would be different. Okay, so I'll keep adjusting that as I go here, but that's starting to look better to me. I'm definitely liking the feeling of this particular pose. So as far as storytelling goes, this is about good for me. Like, again, I'm not trying to draw an exact mimic and representation of the picture I'm looking at. Maybe I'm turning this into Invincible or whoever the character is that I want to draw. This is what I would need, right? I have plenty of information here, and I'll tell you right now, if I went to draw that pose just like this, it just wouldn't have came out as good. It definitely wouldn't have came out as fast. So here we are. This is still 10 minutes into a real-time video and drawing. That's just highly productive as far as speed goes. And I could tell by looking at it that I have enough of the information that I would need to now play into my strengths, which would be to redraw a stylistic version through it. And so I think a lot of this too is again knowing where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and then filling in the gaps with just a different process. So for instance, say you're good at drawing static poses, which a lot of beginner artists may get pretty good at, but then all of a sudden you can't draw foreshortened kicking poses, right? Well, then your goal should probably be to fill up your libraries and your reference and your Pinterest boards or whatever with lots of cool kicking poses, and then making time to redraw them stylistically and look at the forms, look at the overlaps, the anatomy, all the different things that you can sort of learn and grow from that, so that you can either be able to draw it from your mind, or better yet, just to have a setup and a process for getting through it, and like we're doing here. So now we'll kick this into time lapse. I'll show you how I draw over and through this and apply a stylized anatomy. So again, to me, this is a really great way to work for comics. It can expedite the process. It can simplify and help you with complex poses. So again, anything that you know is something you struggle with, you don't fight it for too awfully long. You have a board set with lots of different poses, everything from gymnastics, jumping actions, foreshortening, hand poses, you name it. And you just go there and you implement this process. And so for me, this becomes a lot easier, a lot more fun. I can tell that, as I draw through this, I can make sense of most of it. I'm not saying it's a perfect rendition. I don't know if there ever is. I can still get overly critical, and I can go back through and refine this over and over. But I do like a sort of done is better than perfect way of thinking, where I make it the best that I can in a reasonable amount of time, and I get something done and I move on to the next thing. And if it bothers me too much, I can just revisit it later on, right? Which is something that we're constantly going to do. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've drawn this pose at least one or two other times. So that'll bring this one to a close. I hope you've learned something from today's video. Let me know what you think. More on the way soon. As always, good luck with the art, and bye for now.